And we're back with another Black and No Cream podcast episode live from Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah, which is pretty crazy to say because I've always wanted to come to Sundance but never had the chance until Adobe hit me up and they're like, hey, do you want to come out here and record some episodes? And we're like, yeah. So we hopped on a plane and picked up this really cool premiere mug and set up our stuff and recorded some episodes with really creative people. And today we're talking to one of them. His name's Ernie Gilbert. He is an award-winning, he won a Grammy for Best Music Video working with Childish Gambino. This guy is a director, an editor. He's been doing it for many years at a high level. And he actually has a film premiering here at Sundance this weekend called Opus. And so today was really cool. We got to talk about his come up, getting involved in filmmaking, how he's been able to use both sides of the spectrum from directing to editing and making them work with each other to grow his career. And he's worked on some incredible projects. We actually worked on Beyoncé together. He edited the film Renaissance and I shot a bunch of the footage that's in there. So it was really cool getting to connect with him in person because we never met before that. And so I'm excited to share this episode with you today. If you haven't heard the podcast before, it's a creative podcast. It's really cool. We have a community. You can join it. Please subscribe. The community is free. So the link's in the description below. But other than that, I don't know. It's fun to do bonus episodes for the season too. We got 3 of them that are really, really good. So check them all out. I don't have anything else to say. It's good to be back. All right. Listen to the episode. See ya. Ladies and gentlemen. It's going to start like that. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is a director and an editor. He's taken the raw files and edited them into something that we can consume from musicians like Childish Gambino, Beyoncé, Shawn Mendes, Lizzo, etc. He's directed and edited for brands like Gap, Banana Republic, American Eagle, True Religion, Air Jordan, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. TV and films such as Atlanta, Barry. These credits are ridiculous. Atlanta, Barry. I can't even do the voice this long. Atlanta, Barry. Somebody I used to know. The Renaissance, a film by Beyoncé. He's won a Grammy for Best Music Video. His name is Ernie Gilbert.
That's me.
It's him. He's right here. How are you, dude?
I'm good.
Was that a good intro or is that cheese as hell?
You know, as somebody who doesn't take compliments very well, I'm very much in my turtle shell right now.
I struggle with it. I just last night I ran into someone and she tried to introduce me to a DP. He has a film playing here and she's like giving him props and he was like, and I was like, yeah, I don't know why it's always weird when someone's like, this person's really good at what they do or here's some of the credits they've done. It makes you feel like, but isn't that funny? Because like, I feel like at the very beginning, I always talk about this. I don't know if it's the same for you, but like in the come up in Iowa, like if I were to get on a project and then come home, I'm like, guys, I got this thing to happen.
I think what happens is as you experience success, as you experience growth in your career, you try to normalize things to make sense of it. Like I think there's something about, it's really silly, but an analogy I have is, you know, when you're on an airplane, it's kind of crazy. We're at 35,000 feet. Humans like kind of weren't designed to be at 35,000 feet going 500 miles an hour. And so there's just something about your brain that even though you know the science works, even though you know they're pretty safe, you know, like there's something in your brain that's just like, this is crazy. And it's the same with like snowboarding, you know, we're in Park City and like, if you're going down a run, it's like, we're on a plastic thing going down a hill really fast. And I think, you know, as you experience, you know, these relationships, these opportunities, experiences, you start to like, if it was downloaded into your brain when you first started in college, you couldn't understand it.
No.
Right. And then, so you have to normalize it. And so I think that's what happens. And then when you hear it out loud, you know, I've been doing this 10, 15 years now. When you hear it out loud, it sounds cool. It sounds nice all together, but it's also kind of overwhelming.
I know, dude.
Yeah.
Especially when I talk like a weirdo, like off-brand trailer voice. But I think it's crazy because when I was trying to think about how to approach this conversation, it's like you pop into different types of creative, right? Like you're coming at all different angles, which is very similar to me. Like I feel like I bounce around the same thing. And so it's cool it's trying to summarize it. It's always impossible to try to summarize it because if you just kept saying the credits, it's like, okay, there's a lot of experience here, which is why I want people to understand right out the gate, like that this episode's worth listening to. Keep going. Right. But I think it's I don't know, it's really cool. So I'm pumped to talk to you. And also we got to work on a film together.
We did.
The Renaissance film, which came out last year in November in theaters of last year. And so you got to look through a bunch of my footage.
Yep.
Was it okay?
Yeah. It was like, honestly, an embarrassment of riches.
Okay.
You know, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say.
Yeah, I know that you know,
but I will say that, you know, the film was constructed of shows from across her tour, and across each show we had multiple angles. And so the game in the edit was to comb through all of that and try to make sense of it.
Right.
And, you know, whether it was an official angle from like one of the official camera operators, whether it was like a behind the scenes operator who was running through the crowd on a gimbal, you know, always just trying to find the best angle to tell the best story for her.
So on that film, were you doing a lot? You were focused on the concert?
Yeah. Well, I did concert, and then I did a couple sections of the doc that kind of had us bouncing around just as needed.
Yeah, that project was crazy.
Yeah, it was a behemoth.
Yeah, but it was cool. I mean, it felt really good. It was funny because it's like I knew parts of what was going on, but to see the film it was very interesting just to see like what gets used, how it gets used,
right?
Like the moments that get chosen or whatever. It was really gratifying to see it. Were you at the LA premiere?
I was.
Yeah, it's just, you know what I mean? Like we're sitting in there and
that theater is also, I think it's one of the DGA theaters. It is the best sound I've ever heard.
It sounded insane. I felt like I could hear I felt like I was at the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
100%.
the way it was unbelievable. It didn't sound like that in my hometown theater in Waterloo, Iowa. I kept having to run out and be like,
turn it up,
please turn this thing up, please, please, please. They're like, what the fuck does this guy care so much for it? Why, you know, we're in Utah, we're at Sundance right now.
Yep.
Why are you here at Sundance?
I am here in support of the film I just edited for A24. It's called Opus. It stars John Malkovich and Io Adebri. It's a pop horror thriller directed by Mark Anthony Green. I'm really excited for people to see it on Monday.
Yeah, this is the first like public screening of this?
We've done a couple, you know, low-key test screenings like movie studios like to do to just kind of gauge feedback and kind of navigate through the edit. But this is the first full color, full VFX, the whole thing. This is the film. This is what you'll see in theaters March 14th.
That's crazy.
And we're at the Eccles, which I've been told is the largest theater here at Sundance. So it's 1,600 people.
Damn.
To put that in perspective, the Chinese theater in Hollywood is like 935.
Yeah.
So I'm simultaneously very excited and very anxious to just like, you know, does that horror beat work? Does that little joke work? You know, I think we're going to get that raw audience energy, and 1,600 people reacting to something you did in real time is it's a lot.
Right. Which this is your first Sundance?
My first Sundance. I cut on a film called On the Count of Three that played in 2021, but that was the first year of all remote Sundance.
COVID. Yeah.
So this is the first like in Sundance, walking the red carpet, or I guess it's a red carpet. Maybe you'll have snow on it.
Yeah, true. It is snowing right now if you're listening on audio. Dude, how crazy is that?
It's bonkers.
Because before we started rolling, we were talking just about the idea of getting here, right?
Yeah.
Like in early inspo and stuff. You're from North Carolina?
I grew up in North Carolina. I went to school at Chapel Hill. It was like a little media production degree. Was able to intern in London in college at MTV. And then just like straight out of college, it was the recession, directing music videos, editing music videos, doing like whatever I could get my hands on. And so like getting to LA, getting into Hollywood was always the goal. And yeah, to now look back, you know, I just turned 38 2 days ago.
Happy birthday, bro.
Thanks.
Yes.
And so just looking back and thinking like, okay, what was I thinking at 20, at 21 of what a career in this industry could look like? How would this all work? It's really surreal to be here, to meet people at parties, and then them to have heard of like the thing I worked on.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll ever go away. I hope it never goes away.
I don't think. I don't know. I don't know because this just now will become regular to you, right? Like it's like maybe more films. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a question I wanted to get to later because it's like you're splitting your time from editing and directing, and obviously, like you're saying, that comes from being multifaceted early on in the grind phase of trying to find a way in.
100%.
Right. So, but where's the interest in this industry coming from? Like you're like in high school, junior high, were you like involved in the arts early on, or how did it start?
So for me, I had a very I wanted to go to law school and I wanted to become a politician. And I did Harvard Model Congress. I did moot court. I was like deep in it. I applied to Georgetown, George Washington, American. I was like set on it. And then I did an early college program in North Carolina where I was able to take some college classes as a junior and senior in high school. One of those classes was a documentary filmmaking class. And they gave us, it was Hi8 or Digi 8 cameras, For the younger kids out there, you had to shoot on tape. It was analog. It was really grimy. Those are really popular now. And
Yeah, we have one here.
It's fun because it's like I hated everything about that medium as I was using it, and now it's like a texture that people want in their commercial or whatever. And I just immediately fell in love with, like, I did a documentary. We had an ultimate frisbee team. It was kind of a hippie liberal arts college called Guilford College, and I was like, whoa. This is so much more exciting to me than anything I'd ever experienced. I always like taking photos or whatever, as a kid, but being able to shoot something and then put it together in an edit, have, the juxtaposition of editing, have if I add this with this song from The Streets, who's a UK rapper I really like.
Dude, I forgot about The Streets. Wow.
It's a flashback.
Holy shit.
But yeah, like, combining those things and then that, like, oh, this has energy now. That shot has a subtext to it or something else going on in it was super eye-opening. And then it just like totally derailed any political, legal, lawyer aspirations I had.
You're just like moving on.
And so I was playing in a band at the time, a little Christian emo band called the Angry Canadians.
Sick.
Nothing to hometown heroes. And I was like, okay, I'm going to keep playing with my band. I'm going to go to Chapel Hill, which is the school that's like an hour and a half away. They have a student television station, and they had the Canon XL2 mini DV camera, and you could check it out as a student television member. And I was just like, that's my dream camera.
Yeah.
I get to play with this at any time. And so I went to Chapel Hill, did some internships, MTV, did a fashion photographer internship in New York. And it was just, I have forgotten the question now.
No, I mean, how did you go about, like, what was the internship process like? Did you have to, I would assume everyone else wants that same internship too, right?
Yeah. We had to apply, and Carolina basically would send, I think it was like 10 to 20 students a summer. And we would get paired up with different, so there's like an MTV internship, there's a BBC internship. It was different media companies. And I ended up I was like booking travel for some, it wasn't super hands-on, but I got to go to one shoot with, it was a UK artist who I can't remember the name of. And I got to like help schlep the gear.
That's cool.
And there was something about that was just like, okay, this is like, we're starting to knock on the door of things. And then I, at the student television station, produced a show called Music Scene, spelled S-E-E-N. We thought it was really clever. And that allowed me to kind of like leverage, we had 16,000 students. We had our XL2 cameras. This is all in 05 to 09. So kind of right as YouTube's starting to come out. And we could hit up a band like Gym Class Heroes or Anne Berlin or Mute Math and say, hey, we will come to your show in Chapel Hill and Carborough. We will film your show for free and we'll give you the footage. And that allowed me to kind of build a network of music, of bands, of labels. And so I started touring with bands. I toured with a band called Sullivan on Tooth and Nail Records. Then I toured with a band called Bayside back when they were on Victory Records.
All my guys we're all just like, fuck yeah. You were with Bayside? That's sick. I know. This is like, we did the same thing. Grew up in like punk and hardcore.
And so I'm like, I'm sleeping in Walmart parking lots with Sullivan in their van. Bayside had a bus, and, those guys, Ant, Jack, and Chris, and Nick, like, just took me under their wing. And like, I think Victory paid me $500 to come out on the road for a month.
Yeah.
But it was $500 in a plane ticket. And I had never been to the West Coast. I had never been to Colorado. I had never been to any of these places. And now here I am with a little mini DV camera, like on the bus, filming, cutting, making content for their like very early YouTube channel. We ended up cutting that into a not full feature, but like a 45-minute doc that came out on their re-release of The Walking Wounded. And that was kind of the way in.
That's crazy. So was this while you were still in school you're doing the tour? So you were taking school cameras and going on tour?
Yes.
Sick.
And then I ended up not finishing my degree because I was just like, I'm going to make music videos.
Yeah, like you were starting to find your path with it.
I partnered with a guy named Zach. He was the bass player of Sullivan when Sullivan broke up. He became my producer. I directed, edited, and shot. And we just tapped into his network of friends. We did there was a local band called Farewell. They were on, Epitaph or Equal Vision. We did a Inhale, Exhale video. We started doing a bunch of solid state stuff, tooth and nail stuff.
Damn.
And I did that for 3 years. And in those 3 years, I think it was like 33, 34 music videos, but all in that super sweet, like $3,000 to $5,000 budget.
Yeah.
So, living in North Carolina, my rent was $300 a month. We could take a $5,000 music video, pay ourselves each $1,000, and then put $3,000 into the production.
Yeah.
And I was able to just do that kind of over and over again. And then in 2012, flew out to LA to kind of test the waters. And a friend of mine was like, I can get you a job as a night assistant editor in reality television. And I was like, okay.
How did you meet the friend?
It was a friend from college who had come out like 3 years earlier. And that $900 a week allowed me to move to LA to kind of afford rent and to kind of start doing things.
So you were doing what? You were editing?
I was assistant editing in reality television overnight.
What was like the TV show that you were doing? Or was it a bunch of different shows?
It was a bunch of different stuff. It was a company called Endemol, 51 Minds. At the time, they had like T.I. and Tiny, The Family Hustle. They had, I think I did Redneck Island.
Sick.
And the job was 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. It was you orged footage, you ingested media so that the editors could come in and it would be ready for them to cut in the morning.
Yeah.
And then during the day, and I could never do this now, but I was in my 20s, during the day I was interning at a music video production company called Anthem Films in Silver Lake, and would do that from like 11 to 3, and then 6 p.m. to 4 a.m.
God.
at the reality company.
The hunger.
Yeah. I was ready to prove myself. And, on the side, I was trying to like book music videos to direct or edit or, whatever I could get my hands on. I like to joke that I do whatever people let me do,
No, I'm in the same boat, or whatever just seems fun or
totally.
Cool shit. Like I always just describe it that way. And I think that that's so relatable because all your story is hilarious. That's why I know we'll be friends. Cause there's something about getting a taste of it, right? Like touring, got you to taste a different part of the country, which is just eye-opening in general. Also, 100%. The most freeing feeling of all time, like being in a van or a bus or whatever with your friends. It
was the best sleep I've ever gotten in my life.
Yeah.
Because we would you play a show, you film, you're wiped, you're super tired, you get on the bus. I was the bottom bunk. Ant liked to keep his side of the bus super cold to keep his voice good. Mm-hmm. And so I would literally fall to the floor, roll into the bus, and then you're just like in a womb almost as it kind of you fall asleep.
Yeah, it's the best. So was it like, to make that move, for me it was tough because I was always trying to move with people. Mm-hmm. Like I felt like I needed to move with the people I was working with and collaborating with, and it was like, it just never seemed like the right time for everyone until I eventually just did it by myself. Were you were working with your homie that was a producer, like did you feel like you needed anyone to be there, or is it just like, this is an opening, I'm just going to go make my mark?
For me, like Zach's still a homie. He works on sports stuff in North Carolina now. We keep in touch. I encouraged him to come out. It never really aligned for him. But for those first kind of 2-3 years in LA, I would fly out or he would come to LA and we kept making things together. I think it's important to, they talk about like you build horizontal versus vertical. Like when your friends rise, you rise and vice versa. So I think it's important to maintain those relationships. But yeah, everybody's kind of on their own path at the end of the day. And some people want to make or are able to make that move and some people aren't.
Right, for sure. How long did you do this schedule that you were rolling with?
So this is where like some just luck. I don't know. When you map it all out, it sounds kind of crazy. But basically, I had been working at the reality company for about 100 days, which is what you need to join the union. Mm. And a friend of mine had been doing a lot of stuff with Absolutely Productions, Tim and Eric's production company. He was an editor there, and he needed a union assistant editor for a project. And he was like, "Are you eligible to join the union?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that is." So I started looking into it, and I was. And so that was kind of one of my first moving to LA was a leap of faith. This was kind of my second jump because basically at the time, they would move us around at the reality company kind of to whatever show needed help. And so it was a year-round salary. It was stable. And there was growth. I had friends that had been there longer, and I could see the path. But this show was like a 6-month booking. Most television editing is just freelance. Mm-hmm. And so I remember going to my boss at the reality company and being like, I have this opportunity. It's union. It's like more into the world of what I want to be working on. And he was like, if you take that job, I will never be able to hire you again.
Because when you go union,
it's more of just, I think he was being petty.
Oh, really?
But there's a thing of just kind of like, he didn't want to lose, a person. And in his mind, it would be silly to give up a year-round, solid thing for 6 months. I jumped, I took it. They ended up laying people off 3 months later.
The company that you were with?
Yeah, so I would have lost my job anyway.
Yeah.
And that just allowed me to get into the union, which allowed me to kind of like get into this alt comedy world for editing, which just like I could literally map it out. It's like a snowball going down a hill of like this door opened that door and that thing led to this thing. And
But you were saying that this was more along the lines of like what you wanted to get into. Was it you were into like trying to develop comedy?
Just narrative, you know, just getting out of, I've never been a big reality person. My girlfriend loves it, but I wanted to, you know, I moved to LA to make movies, to make TV, to tell stories, all the cliches. And this was a show called Eagle Heart on Adult Swim with Chris Elliott, like a quirky, he plays a U.S. Marshal. It was in its 3rd season. And Jason Wolner, who went on to direct like a bunch of awesome stuff. He did the second Borat movie, was our director. And so it was just like every single kind of part of it was super appealing and super exciting. And I had to do it.
That's crazy. Is it, you know, as you're seeing the progression happen, you're realizing that like you can exist there as that's happening. Is it, did you feel like the hunger maintained like while this was happening? Like cause it's like you almost level up in Mario or whatever, and then you got a new level to beat. And like, are you just still having that grind, or does any of it, are you experiencing any like kind of exhaustion from like, I mean, 100 days and you were doing an internship and you're doing all these other things. Like is it exhausting? Are you like,
I would say no. I don't know. It just, to me, it kind of was what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to do it, and so I just did it. I think for me, the first 3 or 4 years in LA were tough because you just don't know if you're going to get another job.
Yeah,
and it's expensive to live there.
Right.
And so that was always the game of just kind of like live to the next one. You know, like, okay, if I can just push hard enough, if I can make enough connections, if I can open enough doors, or I mean, honestly, a lot of it was, you know, luck. A lot of it was people helping me.
Yeah.
And it was always like, I got to get to the next one, because if I don't, then I need to move home.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel like that this show, like it being 6 months, do you feel like this was like a pinnacle breaking point in your career? Or like you had already been doing so many different things, but like what was the thing that you felt like kind of catapulted you into the next realm that you wanted to be in?
So, I mean, for that, it was like joining the union is always a hurdle. It's just one of those catch-22s. It's like, in order to get the union, you got to work. And in order to work, you got to be in a union. And so they don't make it easy to like navigate. I think for me, it was 100 days on payroll. And because the reality company made television that was non-union, it was like easy to qualify. But now I can't speak to what it is now because I haven't had to join. I imagine they must have some carve-outs for like if you do social content, commercial, YouTube, you know, like with the times. But it was, I think that one for me meant that I was like adjacent to the stuff I wanted to be doing, right? And that encouraged me, kind of built the network. I think going back to that building horizontal thing, so much of LA is smaller. It's huge, don't get me wrong. It's sprawling, but it's way smaller if you're like in these different niche areas. Like now that I get to run in music video and commercial and film and TV and different places, I can kind of see how, okay, there's a comedy circuit of like up and coming comedians who do UCB, who do different things. And then they get an opportunity based off a sketch, a web series, whatever. Now they get their show. And so like everybody who was cutting on their stuff pre that kind of blow up now gets to rise with them as they get their first shot at a show.
Sure.
And so I was like starting to recognize those patterns. And I think that gave me like a confidence, and, you know, it was that understanding that like, okay, I now have my network of editors. Because at the time I was assistant editing, which I don't know if everybody knows that. But like assistant editing in television is you organize the footage, you handle exports, you know, prepping for your color vendor, your sound mix, all these things. You're kind of the tech behind the scenes. I think the best AEs are also very creative. They also contribute with assemblies, with sound design, kind of like being that right-hand person to the editor. And so to me, it was like I was assistant editing, and that let me meet a lot of great editors, which then meant like if they went to a show, well, now I get to follow them to the next show. And then that gave me kind of that stability, that base to operate from, that allowed me to feel like I could, you know, go do a short film or try to do a music video on the side, or, you know, see what would happen if I put my name out for to direct a music video or edit a music video.
Yeah. What do you feel like you were gaining from as an AE? It's like you have it's a rare seat into the eyes of someone that is obviously like farther down the road than you are at the time. So what do you feel like you were gaining from like a mentorship angle, or like what kind of advice were you learning at that time to see how to conduct yourself if you were to get those roles on like a bigger project?
I think there's a what's the way to put it? Editing is not super sexy, or at least it wasn't 10 years ago. I feel like with the rise of social media, with TikTok, with all these things, like editing is now a language that people understand and respect. And they're like, ooh, I love a transition. I love a match cut. But 10 years ago, editing was just like the least sexy of the things. Like everybody wanted to be a director, an actor, a writer, or a cinematographer, like throwing Alexa on your shoulder and you're like the coolest, post on Instagram or whatever. And and so, editing was like this backdoor secret code for me, because as an assistant editor, if let's say season 1 of Baskets on FX, they shoot for like 40, 45 days, but we cut that for 6 to 8 months. So if I was a camera PA, I would have 40 days of work. And then to fill out the rest of the year, I would need to find 5 other shows. But as an assistant editor, I could do 2 shows a year, a show, whatever that math is. It's early for math. And I would have that kind of consistent work. But then I'm also in the room with the showrunner, with the director, with the producer, with the editor. Like I'm in the conversations that normally, again, if you're a camera PA or if you're a regular PA or whatever else, you're just like, you kind of hear it.
You're maybe the farthest fly on the wall.
Yeah, you hear it from a walkie-talkie maybe. And so for me, it was like meeting editors, seeing their choices, and then simultaneously getting to watch like all these amazing actors, their dailies. I joke that casting directors should form an alliance with assistant editors, because the AEs know who's got the talent.
Right.
They're seeing, all the stuff raw, all the stuff pre-edit, juiced up and made fancy, And so, to me, it was just like, I got like what felt like another film, not that I went to film school, but like it felt like an additional film school kind of experience of just like sitting and watching somebody like Jonathan Kreisel, who did Baskets and has gone on to do a billion other things, and just seeing like what were the choices he was making. Not only like in the dailies, just hearing him talk on set, but just like in the room on a cut. Yeah. And I think those kind of, not alliances, but just those mentorships, those experiences with those editors, you learn kind of the craft of sitting in a room, knowing when to interject, knowing when to have an opinion, knowing when to kind of sit back and, you guys, you're figuring it out, and I'm going to kind of wait until we get to an agreement. And those are all things that are part of the job. Yeah. That don't necessarily equate to like pressing the buttons in Premiere.
Right, which is a unique perspective, and I think it's also cool because did most people that you're around, they're just assuming your goal would be strictly just editing. It doesn't even matter what people think about it, but for you, you're able to gain all the insight from all the different sectors of the business. Right. Where if you want to go on and directing, you're able to sponge up so much of that, which is like a really cool perspective. Yeah. Having access to that and hearing and seeing how the director's moving and how the director communicates to the editor, or what the editor might need to better communicate to a director. Or if you were in that position, how do you want to relay information? Yeah. It's got to help with just streamlining your thought process.
I'm a firm believer that like if you want to be a filmmaker, one of the best things you can do is learn what one of the other departments does. It's only going to help you. I've taken acting classes. I have no aspirations. I would be an actor if a friend like had a movie where like it was in the end of the world, and the president's like briefing people in the Oval Office, and somebody needs to come in and be like, no, we can't do that. And then like Jerrod Butler shuts that person down. I would be that person because that sounds really fun. But I took an acting class because I wanted to know like what are they experiencing on their side. Yeah. And how can I use that, and how can I, be a better director, a better editor? At the panel at Adobe yesterday, we talked about just like emotional intelligence. I think a big part of being a filmmaker, not just telling a story, getting it on the screen, but just like all the operations behind the scenes, you have to just like take people as people and say, okay, this person maybe has a really strong opinion right now, but they're just a person. Maybe they're having a bad day. How can I kind of be how can I defend and articulate what I think the project needs, but also see people for who they are and where they are.
Right.
I think that's a big like experience thing. Sitting in those edit bays for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, months on end is really, it's just like, even like the Beyoncé stuff. It's like when you're there till 3 a.m, how do you navigate different opinions? And that's all part of the work, even though it's not like actually pressing record on a camera or exporting a timeline.
No, totally. Is it when you're finding a lot of jobs in the editing space, like when I moved at the time before I ever moved to LA, I was rapping.
Okay.
I was in bands too, but then I transitioned to hip hop.
Okay.
Doing rap and making all the videos and all this stuff for our group, and then like random clients I'd have to pay bills so I could keep making music.
Totally.
And so I moved to LA, and my mindset was like, I'm either going to go there for music, or I'm going to use, I'll go there for video or photography, and maybe I'll use that to get me in the space. And then as soon as I got there, the work started coming from like the editing side. I was like, I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
And I left that life behind me. But at a certain point, it's like I found the thing, I had the thing, and I was getting access to it. So I was like, oh, this is kind of like one of the goals I had. I'll just ride with that. If you're getting a lot of editing work, you're AEing on a lot of projects, at what point do you transition and start becoming an editor, like taking over that editing position, but also feeling the need and want to direct?
Right.
How are you finding the balance of like, do I have to pick one? Do I keep doing both?
So I love analogies, and I think for me, each of those different tracks is like a ladder. You have a directing ladder, a producing ladder, editing ladder, acting, whatever it is. And I think climbing those ladders gets you higher. If you're going to jump between, you're going to lose a little bit of height each jump. And so it doesn't hurt to be an acclaimed editor if you want to direct. Like if anything, you're a known quantity now to people. I can go to a creative director at an ad agency that I've cut projects for. They've sat in the rooms with me. They know my taste. They know my choices. And I can say, okay, you have a project, like I did this thing for Dr. Pepper with Deutsch, and the creative director over there, a friend of mine, Curtis Petraglia, he brought me on to co-direct this project with him, knowing that like I had kind of a unique skill set with dealing with musicians and bands and like behind the scenes stuff. And we could collaborate on this project together. I edited some stuff for him, and he was just like, okay, I know that like having Ernie on set will be an asset on the director's side, and then Ernie's also going to cut it for me.
Right.
And so I think you're able to kind of leverage those things. But yeah, I think if anything, in the last 20 years, we all wear so many more hats. We were talking earlier about Entourage.
Yes.
And there's, I watched that show to like understand how the business works. And I remember there's a scene where somebody's talking about like, once you do television, you can't go back to acting in films because there's such a delineation.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel that way anymore. I feel like to be a filmmaker in 2025, you need to understand more than ever before. You need to be able to talk to your department heads, be able to navigate all of these things. And, there's less jobs in the directing realm. Most directors I know have a side hustle, even people that like have had stuff at Sundance will still like go do some VFX, to make ends meet. Even the Daniels, I think, were on record as saying that they directed some of that Star Wars series because they're like, we needed our healthcare.
Wow.
So I think there's like less kind of embarrassment of jumping between spaces. And Dave Franco's a friend who I cut his film, somebody I used to know, and he directs, but then also acts. And his kind of approach to it is, he gets to scratch different sides of his brain. And, directing, you have kind of the weight on your shoulders of an entire project. But acting, he can kind of slot in and out, be there for 2 weeks, be there for 2 months, whatever it is. And so I think, as I look at my career and as I think about giving advice to other people, I think it doesn't hurt to try different things, to branch out. Obviously, the best of the best are super dialed in. I'm sure like, Roger Deakins is not, trying to write a script tomorrow, but maybe.
Yeah.
But I think, we just have to kind of find You just have to find your way through it.
Yeah.
And that there is no like specific formula for that anymore.
Well, I think it's like compound interest. It's like, you know, if you do something with someone over time, like it turns into opportunity. And every single time, there's so many times, even now, it's like, okay, you do something and then you do another project that you're like, man, I don't like, is that going backwards? But really it's like, no, it's an investment. Like every time it's always an investment, in my opinion, of certain projects and how you parlay that into a win. You know, I think it's really exciting.
It's real easy to like get in your head and be like, oh, if I do this, it'll do that, and if I do that, it'll open this. And when you do that, you limit yourself to your imagination. And I think what's really exciting is like some of the stuff I've said yes to has led to something I could have never possibly imagined. And you know, if it had been limited to my imagination, you know, I would have like probably planned my way out of a career.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's crazy. So back into the story as it's developing, as you're progressing, when is that moment you start leading on editing? When do you start getting more editing jobs? You break from an AE, or maybe you're able to do both. How are you finding that and navigating that world?
So we were doing like baskets. I was doing Atlanta as the assistant editor. And
which season was that?
I did seasons 1 and 2 of Atlanta.
Nice.
And season 1 of Baskets. No, 1 and 2 of Baskets. It's all a blur. But basically, on the side, as I was AEing on those shows, I was like reaching out to music video production companies, directors. You know, I was trying to like shore up. Let me say that again, where I'm not touching my face.
Yeah.
Hey, editor.
Yeah, there you go.
This. No, so yeah, as I was like doing Baskets in Atlanta, I was, you know, on the side trying to, you know, there's a $500 music video edit. I'll do that on the weekend or nights or whatever. And eventually I got to a place at the end of Atlanta season 2 where I was kind of making the same amount of money on the side as I was AEing during the day. And the season was coming to an end. I had done Barry season 1 for HBO with Kyle Ryder was the editor on that. I was his assist, and he offered me to go do season 2. And I thought like, okay, this is the time. I need to jump again. You know, I need to kind of make the move. I had desired to edit full time earlier. You know, I was kind of frustrated for a couple of years because I hadn't made the jump. I had friends who were like AEing who made the jump, and one of my good friends, Jordan, said to me, he was like, you know, if it was fair, you'd have it. It's not fair.
It's true.
And yeah, so I went to Kyle and I said, hey, Kyle, I'm going to leave Atlanta a month early. It allowed our post PA, Jen Bryson, who's a good friend, to jump to assistant editor and kind of get into the union, which was a benefit to her and super. She was the best. She had AE'd for some stuff for me on the side, and told Kyle, I was like, hey, I'm going to try to edit for 2 months. I'm going to see what happens. And if it doesn't go where I want it to, I would love to come AE for you on Barry season 2. And in those 2 months, I cut This Is America for Childish Gambino.
Which is an insane video.
I mean, I like to joke that it's 7 edits that changed my life. And I think that's factual. But yeah, I cut that video. It did what it did.
Wait, why 7 edits?
There's only 7 cuts in that video.
Oh, it is. It's all like one takes.
Yeah.
7 edits that changed my life. That's crazy. I mean, you guys, what did I say at the beginning? You won a Grammy.
We won a Grammy for Best Music Video that year.
It's fucking insane.
We got a VMA for Music Video with a Message. I got nominated, but didn't win for editing.
Yeah.
Lost to a friend who I met at the Beyonce office.
That'll happen.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But yeah, no, so it was like that opened up. I'm a case study in like, there were people I would email or call who would not return my calls or emails, who then all of a sudden were like, oh, hello. And that goes back to the thing of it not being fair. Like, again, I had at that point I had directed, 4 dozen music videos. I had edited probably 60 music videos at that point, and none of them opened the doors that one did.
Right.
And I think that's for a lot of people, their experience is you need that one big break. You need that thing that like becomes a calling card that people are like, oh, they trust you to do that. Well, we want that. We want that lightning in a bottle that you were able to do there. And so I did that, signed with a place for commercial editing, and then started working with Jerrod Carmichael, Burnham, and Chris Storer. They had a company together. They were doing stand-up specials. and was able to just kind of like transition kind of in a 6-month period to editing.
That's pretty absurd.
Yeah.
Was the way you got that video, through AE and being around?
So I had done a Tribe Called Quest video for Hero like 8 or 9 months before. And Hero on Atlanta season 2 had come into the office and he was like, "You guys want to hear the new Childish Gambino?" And we were like, yes. And, Hero's one of those directors that when I first moved to LA, I was like, this is, he's got the thing.
Yeah.
Just would reference his videos, inspired by them, trying to figure out how he did them. And so I hit him up. I was like, "You guys are doing a video, right? Like, who's doing the video?" And he was like, "Well, do you want to cut it?" And I was like, "Absolutely, yes." And so they like did a day rehearsals on a Monday. They shot it on a Tuesday. I think I had my cut to Hero on a Thursday. Donald had notes on Friday. And then it was like colored next week, delivered so that it could premiere while he was hosting SNL.
The quickest like turnaround of all time. Holy shit.
I literally had to drive it to the color house in Culver City because there wasn't enough time to like upload the files and download them and make our deadline.
Oh my God. It's such a crazy story, dude. That's so insane. And
I almost didn't do Atlanta. That's the other fun wrinkle.
But this is what we're talking about. Like, this is why some of these things, it's like, how'd you describe it? Like, if you're like trying to decide and think of your fate, or if I do this, then like you didn't know, but you're just taking the things that were coming to you. But like by doing that, and then also being like, I might have to, why am I not having the editing jobs yet? Mm-hmm. It's because you needed to do that.
100%. I turned down, or I got it offered Atlanta, the pilot, and was like, "Hey, I can't quit the show I'm on because they have me booked for another 8 months." It was a show called Comedy Bang Bang, which is like a known show. It's on IFC, Scott Aukerman. And I don't know, I had something hit me like in the back of my head. I emailed the post producer I had never met before, Caitlin, and I was like, "Wait, tell me what the show is." And she was like, "It's Donald Glover and Hiro Murai." And I was like, "Well, I have to do that." Yeah. And so that was another jump where it was like I had 8 months on Comedy Bang Bang, or I go assistant edit for 5 weeks on Atlanta. And when I left, like the other AE on Comedy Bang Bang, Sean was his name. He was kind of the second one on. And so technically if there was ever somebody get bumped up to edit, it would have been me. And so of course he got bumped up to edit on Comedy Bang Bang. And so in the moment I was like, did I do it wrong? Did I do it wrong? But no, I mean, Atlanta changed my life as well. Yeah. Just working with that team and meeting Donald, meeting Hero and everybody else. Caitlin, she's gone on to be like, she was a producer on Guava Island. She's on Mr. and Mrs. Smith's, just like
insane
powerhouse. And yeah, it's all, I don't know, saying it all out loud, I'm a little overwhelmed.
It's cool to walk through it. I think it's dude, I mean, shit. There's no way really to describe, and also even me trying to do research, there's no way I can't find the timeline like this. You know what I mean? So I love doing these types of things where I get to like force you to remember how it all played out, because it's so cool to think like when I did Homecoming, right? Like Coachella, I just shot. I didn't even know, I just started shooting. I didn't know we were making a film. Mm-hmm. You're just filming, and then I switch sides and I'm shooting the live show. Yep. And then we go on tour for OTR2. So a whole year passes and then I come back and then there's a movie and it's done and then it comes out on Netflix. And it's like after you've already like moved on from that job and it 100%. Comes back and it won a Grammy for Best Music Film. And you're like, what the fuck? Like you know what I mean? Like, and then that saying that is the thing. Like that, just saying her name is always it. Obviously just working side by side or whatever. 100%. But like, that moment, like just having that film come out, it just didn't make sense. Yep. You know what I mean? Just thinking about it just doesn't make sense. But then
it's that normalization I'm talking about, where it's just kind of like we're at 35,000 feet in an airplane when we shouldn't be. Yeah. And it just does. It feels surreal. It feels just out of this world.
I know. Yeah. It's crazy. So if you sign with them and you said you were working, it was Bo Burnham's company. They were producing like stand-up specials.
So Bo, Jerrod, and Storr had a company that we did oh man, I'm the worst with names.
Tell me about it.
Did like a little Rel stand-up special, a Kate Berlant special, I can't think of the first one for some reason. But yeah, it was just, those were little like pops of like 5-week, 6-week edits. Then I helped Jerrod cut. He did 2 HBO specials about his family. One was called Home Videos or Home Movies. And then the other was Sermon on the Mount. So I helped him cut those. And then that's what actually led to me cutting my first feature, which was On the Count of Three, that he directed that stars him and Chris Abbott. And I got to work on that into 2019, into 2020.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So, because you also have a slew of like short films.
Yeah.
And
So
you're working on,
as we were doing Atlanta season 2, I shot my first short film called 9 Minutes with Constance Wu and Reggie Watts out at the Trona Pinnacles up in Ridgecrest, California.
yeah, it looked really cool.
It was a little, astronaut sci-fi idea I had that got my buddy Singh to come shoot. He had some short ends, first time I ever shot on film, and spent way too much money.
Yeah, that was all self-funded?
Self-funded, self-produced. Emily Good, who I had met on Comedy Bang Bang, came on and produced it with me and helped me kind of do all the logistics. We were, a SAG, whatever their lowest budget, thing was. And yeah, learned a lot, we had a PA lock a grip truck and we're like, an hour and a half outside of town. So you smash a window, you get in the grip truck so you can shoot and make your day. And that was really fun to just like stretch that different side of me. You know, I had been at that point had worked on all those narrative shows and was now getting to kind of direct a really talented actress and kind of play in that different sandbox.
And then, I mean, is that inspiring you in a new way to like have done it, like to go challenge yourself and do that thing? Mm-hmm. Like it's scary. I just did my first one. It was scary. Like it was scary to take it on.
Very scary.
And like, you're like, man, what if I do it wrong or if it doesn't turn out the way I think it will or whatever. But now I'm like hooked. Like
there's nothing like it.
It's crazy.
It's the best. For me, it was like, I feel like I've said this in meetings way too many times, but it's on my brain. When you're editing something, you're signing on to something that's already probably greenlit, probably casted. They're like, here's your rate. Here's how many weeks we need you for. It's so obvious. And then when you make something yourself, you are becoming like a small business. You're an entrepreneur all of a sudden. And there is nobody to like lean on and be like, what should I do?
Yeah.
Or how does this work? Like at the end of the day, the buck stops with you, especially if you're like self-financing it. And there is kind of, you have to be, some advice I got was, nobody's going to care about it more than you. And so you have to be that engine that drives the thing, and then that everybody like matches and rises to your level. And if you're not putting it all in, why would they?
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, the real scary thing. And there's no like, for short films especially, there's no real clear path for them. I feel like with the invention of like, I see all your Canon cameras, here, like we can get image quality like never seen before out of these small, very, relatively inexpensive things. And so short films are now easier than ever to make. And so like, where do they go? How do you promote them is such a opaque, like weird, nebulous thing. And so it is the scariest thing to say, okay, I'm going to like stake out, I'm going to ask all these people to work for very little money to make my crazy idea come true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it received when it came out? Like what was your process of distributing it? And
so like real talk, we shot on film, monitoring on set was really tough. And I made the mistake of having her visor closed the entire time. So in every shot you could see my crew.
Oh shit.
And so it took me about a year and a half to save up the money and find a VFX vendor who was willing to go in and do the paint outs to make it so that, because it's your actress's face.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the short, it's literally Constance on film the entire time. Reggie Watts is the voice of her AI in her computers or in her spacesuit. And so, that was really like defeating.
Damn.
To feel like I had, spent more money than I've ever spent on anything in my life. Pulled all these favors, done all this stuff. I got this band, This Will Destroy You. They're one of my favorite, like, kind of ambient rock bands to do the score. Like all of the things had aligned the way I wanted, but I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And so yeah, when it came out, we partnered with Dust, which is an offshoot of I'm gonna mess it up. You might have to edit this out.
We can do it.
It's Alter or Shutter, maybe. It's their sci-fi brand. We partnered with them to do a YouTube release, and it didn't play Sundance, it didn't get into the festivals that I'd wanted. And so I think that was kind of like a part of my career where I was like, did I make the right move? Like you kind of question yourself if you have an expectation for where something should land or how it should be. I mean, honestly, in the context of being here in Park City at Sundance right now, I submitted that film to Sundance at 29, thinking that like, okay, I'm going to turn 30. My birthday's always around Sundance. I'm like, I'm going to get to go to Sundance on my 30th birthday.
Yeah.
That was the expectation I had set for myself. When that wasn't met, it was frustrating. It was kind of, okay, I got to reevaluate. I got to think about like how I want to approach these things. And, I think at the end of the day, it's vulnerable to make something and then share it. It's easy to edit it because I can always be like, well, I'm just the editor.
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of, or even be a PA or a camera assistant or something. It's like you're a cog in the machine, but like when you're directing it, when you're putting that stamp on it and you're saying, this is me, I'm sharing a part of myself. It's vulnerable.
It is. So, but you didn't stop. Like it didn't get to your head enough to not make another one.
Yeah, I'm crazy.
Yeah. So then how long apart are until you did your second one?
So I shot Easy 8 in 2018. So a couple years later.
Okay.
And that was just another idea I had. I had met David Rysdale because he's married to Zazie from Atlanta. I had met him when I was casting for 9 Minutes because originally Zazie was going to play that role before she had to drop out. And she had recommended her then boyfriend, David, to play the voice of the AI. And we really connected, really responded well to each other. And so I set out to write another short that was kind of like one location, a couple people, all those things that they say to do. And dove in head first with that, worked with my DP, Eric Bader, who had shot a lot of music videos for me. And we did 3 overnights at the Three Aces Ranch. And a lot of other new lessons, of just kind of like, what do you do when your body is very tired and you're trying to, make something make sense? And I don't know. It's addicting. Being on set is addicting. Directing is addicting. There's nothing else like it in terms of just how it streamlines. I don't know. I'm an anxious person. I'm an overthinker probably, but when you're on set, you can't be, and so it just really streamlines choices, streamlines what you're doing. And there's a camaraderie that I love with crews. I love empowering people and letting people kind of bring their A game and put their stamp on things. And there's just no feeling like writing something down like, okay, it's night, the minivan pulls into the motel or whatever,
Yeah.
And then seeing it come to life.
Yeah. It's a very bizarre feeling.
Yeah.
The Opus, like getting into, attacking features has to be daunting.
Yep.
Terrifying.
I like to joke, and I have editor buddies who feel the same way, that like anytime I get hired, I'm kind of like, why did they hire me?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And with a feature, with a commercial, you can hop into that and you can have that feeling. And then like worst case, you have 2 hours of footage, 5 hours of footage, and you're making something 30, 60 seconds, like you can kind of fight through that battle very quickly.
Yeah.
I like to get to an assembly edit as soon as possible, even if it's the worst thing ever, because it just allows me to see it and then to like react and want to improve and like compare and contrast. And with features, you can't. It's Opus we shot for 20 days, and so we're cutting as they're shooting.
Really?
My assistant editor Riley Adamson, shout out Riley, he's the best. Is organizing footage as it comes in. So there's like a day lag. So they'll shoot. We have to download it. He has to organize it, make my multicams, do all my fun, stuff in Premiere. And then I start cutting. And it's almost like, what's the Charlie Day thing in Always Sunny when he's Peppo Sylvia in the mail room or whatever, like the mail keeps coming. It's like those first 5 days, those first 10 days, the footage just keeps coming. And you can't overthink. You can't because you'll get behind.
Yeah.
And the reason they want you cutting as they're shooting is you have a very small window to kind of catch, okay, man, we really need an insert of that. Can you guys tack that on to day 18? We're on day 5. Can you get that? We really will need this because it's infinitely more expensive to spool up for some sort of pickups or whatever,
Yeah.
When people are there, it's way easier to go an hour into OT and grab something than it is
to do
a pickup. And so you just have to kind of rush through those feelings of I don't know what this is yet. So much of it, You sign on to do a film, you interview with the director, you maybe talk for an hour. And then if you're lucky, the director is collaborative and open ahead of the shoot, and they're sharing storyboards or they're sharing ideas. You're talking through comps, all the different stuff. But you have to just like, if all you've ever done is short form, even just thinking about like doing an export, Premiere's really fast now. I think back to exports taking forever, but if you export a 60-second commercial, it's going to take 60 seconds.
Right.
But if you export a feature, it's 45 minutes, and so every little thing that normally you can do so very quickly is now slower. And so you have to play this game of like, I say, you look at the macro, like the little magnifying glass with the ant, the frame, the scene, and then you have to go out to the macro. You have to go out to the wide and kind of not get lost in that. You have to kind of hold the whole movie in your mind at once while still also being very focused on the specific parts.
Jesus.
And that's the daunting part for me.
Yeah. And how big was is it just you and an AE?
Yep.
Oh, no, it was.
So it was myself, Riley, we had a post supervisor named Paul Ryan, and then our director, Mark Anthony Green. And so Paul Ryan was remote, but then me, Mag, we call him Mag, that's his initials. And Riley, we were just in an office in Silver Lake for 10, 11 months, just grinding it out.
So in real time, how much of it did you have laid out, like as they were shooting, or was it really just trying to see the scene play out real quick so you could find those nuggets? And the director was leaning on you to try to really look at it and explore like what will we need if we can pick it up right now.
Yeah, so it was you fly through it as quickly as you can. There's definitely scenes that are easier. There's stuff that's like you might just do. You just take the last takes and you slam them together, and try to, see what it is. I always like to try to have a loose assembly done by the time production wraps or a week after. Just depends on what. I think with the timing of this one, there was stuff we didn't get footage. I want to say there was a holiday or something. So we didn't quite have that. And then every director's a little different. Some directors want to see a full cut and react to it. Some kind of want to just dive in scene by scene and kind of noodle with you and work through it. Mag was the type of director, he wanted to noodle each scene. And so we kind of just went scene by scene, and he watched my assembly. He would give me some feedback, some notes. We would then watch down takes. My assistant editor, Riley, does line by lines, which for those who don't know, let's say scene 10 of a movie has 10 lines. He would go through and find each read of line 1 and put it back to back in a sequence for me.
So that's like you can go pull your selects that way. Like what do you feel like is working the best?
Literally what I'll do is I'll watch down, let's say it's scene 10, and then it's every line 1, every line 2, every line 3. And in each little chunk is like, here's the 3 wides, here's the 2 closes, here's the 2 over the shoulders, whatever. I will literally watch it down, and I move from V1, video track 1, up to 2, 3, 4, my selects. And so then I will have kind of one select per line. I can then just, lasso drag, whatever the term is, copy those in, close my gaps, and now I have like a very crude, ugly working version of that scene.
Yeah.
With my favorite line read of each line. And then at that point I can start saying, oh, you know what, it's too cutty here. We should really just stay on this character. Ios should be hearing what John's saying. I don't need to see John say it right now. And then I'll just like kind of drag out those things. And so to me, it's just like racing to get that assembly done.
So are you doing like one sequence with all the lines for like that scene there? Is it by scene? Yeah. So each scene has its own sequence, and that's how you're doing it. So then you just have your selects, which is probably super beneficial. Like you're doing that by yourself. You sit down with the director and you guys maybe want to look at another option. You go back to that string out.
Yep, 100%. And it becomes this kind of like hieroglyph or whatever, where 3 months into the edit, we can say, man, what was our favorite other take of this? Like, we don't like that she blinks.
Yeah.
What was the second best one? And it's still there. It's
you
still
have your
preserved.
Initial vibe check on that.
100%.
That's cool. Jesus. When you're going about, well, how are you using, like within your team, like is the director hopping in on the edit as well?
No, he sits on the couch, and we have a not that big of a TV, but we have like a 65-inch TV.
Yeah.
And so he can sit on the couch and kind of react to things, watch things. And then I've got my 2 monitors in front of me.
How is the workflow utilizing like Premiere with like is it like if your AE is working out, you guys are just firing projects. Are you guys doing teams or?
We were in productions.
Yeah.
And so we had a shared server at Fancy Film, the post house we cut out of, and we did real projects, REL. And so the idea is you chunk up the film based on kind of like 20 pages of the script, or about 20 minutes, and then that would have every scene. Oh, sorry. That would have every scene from kind of that 20-page chunk in those string outs. I'm talking about the line by lines, all the multicams, all that stuff, and then that way, my AE, like as new footage comes in, he has day-by-day projects. And in those day-by-day projects, he's organizing, making multicams, renaming clips to match the scene numbers and the take numbers. And then that way in productions, we can just kind of pass things back easily. I can just text him on iMessage and say, hey, close up reel 8, give me those scenes. He opens it up on his system, adds in the scenes from that day org, and then closes it up, and I have it back in 2 seconds.
Is this like a process that you guys are planning before production starts? Like, is this just your typical process that you've dialed in with your guys?
Yeah. This is, I mean, I've been cutting in Premiere since, Basket season 1 would have been 2014 or 15. Comedy Bang Bang was in Premiere 2014. Yeah. So, I mean, this is just the process that like me and a bunch of other Premiere editors use for film and TV.
Yeah.
What productions has helped. We used to have to, like 10 years ago, close a project, open a project. That was a whole dance.
Right. And is it, I guess within productions, I guess I don't use it that often. You're able to, you're streamlining access for quick access. Like you're able to, that's the essential portion of how you're using that.
So productions, what it allows you to do is you would have a production, and within that production are projects that we all see, every computer has access to. And so we each just open the production, and then if I have a project open, you can't open it and change it. You can open it and look at it, read only. And then if you close it out or I close it out, like basically it locks projects so that people aren't messing each other's work up.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes it so seamless. Yeah. That's cool. Were there any big like hurdles that you had to jump in the process of cutting this that you felt like or maybe you were proud to overcome something that, was a head scratcher?
I mean, it was all kind of the normal things. We had a little bit of our dailies house out in New Mexico was like creating HDR dailies, and we were having some color space stuff that we had to solve, but Adobe was super helpful. They connected us with some of the AEs from the Fincher camp to kind of talk through their workflows. We ended up not doing HDR just because we weren't set up to monitor it. So we had to kind of do some retranscodes, which was, annoying, but not kind of whatever. I think the biggest thing is just, anytime you do a smaller film that's got, minimum shoot days, they didn't have multicam every day. You just have to get creative with like, okay, how do I get from this scene to that scene? Or, is there a look I can steal from this thing to kind of recontextualize that thing? But that's kind of standard editing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There wasn't any kind of like big blaring thing. All in all, it was really a fun experience.
Have you been playing with the AI? Like, I think I read something that you used the AI feature within Premiere for.
We used some of the enhanced speech, which is their kind of cleanup tool that I think initially started as a podcast tool to kind of, clean up noisy podcast audio. We had a shoot that took place on a tarmac in New Mexico, and there's like military band radio that was kind of messing with our lavs.
Oh, weird.
And it would come in this like really screechy kind of thing. And I'm big on like getting the offline edit to like 85-90% of the way there. It just helps things, sell through with producers, with clients. No matter the project, people want to kind of understand what it's going to be. And so we use the enhanced speech function on some of that kind of dirty lav stuff to just help us like have a cut. Just help us have a cut that didn't bump people.
Yeah.
If you have a radio hit, it's not great. And so it was really nice to just be able to like kind of apply that to stuff and then not have to think about it.
Right. So, the post process for that film was about a year. Mm-hmm. You wrapped officially.
We picture locked in October.
And now it's here. And you said it's coming out in theaters in March?
March 14th in theaters.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting.
I'm excited for you to see it with 1,600 people. And
for me, the theatrical. I know it's cliche, but the theatrical. There's just nothing like seeing your movie in a theater.
yeah,
And I watch movies on my phone all the time. I'm not a whatever, but I just there's something about like, I've done several features now, and like somebody I used to know destroyed on Amazon. But it wasn't in a theater. And so I couldn't like go with some friends and like share that communal experience with the popcorn.
right.
And I'm very much looking forward to Opus.
Was that the different? Was that during COVID?
It was like kind of on the tail end of it.
So was theater releases weren't, I mean, obviously it stopped.
It was one of those ones where like I think Amazon, they do a lot of straight to streaming stuff, and we were like cutting during COVID protocols, but then I don't know. I think it was just, they felt like the streaming was the place for it.
Yeah. Do you feel like, directors like Dave or any of these directors you're working with value your, or maybe like you as an asset coming from a director's mind helps, I don't know, just the entire process from the editing standpoint, like being able to also be a second set of, I think there's like, I've worked with editors that have never directed before,
Yeah.
And I think there's a value gain there that you have that access or you've had that mindset. So do you feel like it, maybe not for them, but just in general, do you feel like there's an extra level of guarantee that comes with you having that they can lean on you for that?
I would hope so. I think everybody has a different process and a different workflow. Mag was so gracious to let me kind of like sit in on calls and weigh in on things. And we did do a couple days of pickups just to get some inserts and get some additional things. And they brought me out to set for that, to kind of have my laptop with the sequence, with the timeline, so that like as they were doing an insert, if they needed to match something, we had the file right there. And,
cool.
And I think it was probably helpful that I could pitch like. I think part of just this holistic approach to filmmaking is like being able to look at something and say, okay, you can get away with, this is how you could do the VFX that would supplement or make that thing work, or this is the asset you need. Like I've done so many random low budget music videos and things where it's like I can say, okay, we can stitch together still frames of these two things as the camera was panning pre-action.
Yeah.
Turn that into a background plate, and now you can comp somebody on green screen into that shot and make something that was never intended to be made, but you need somebody to like deliver a line or whatever. So I think those sorts of like ways in are super beneficial. And I look forward to, as I direct more, working with more editors, and I would always appreciate any sort of input. I'll steal any good idea. At the end of the day, it's the service of the project, whatever makes the movie
the best
it can be.
Yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you giving us your time. So I always end this.
Okay.
I'm going to make people flood your Instagram whenever they get to this point in the podcast.
Okay.
And they're going to put this hashtag that you're going to decide right now in like on whatever your last post is. And that way we both know that they listened to the full episode.
Okay.
So you get to pick a hashtag, whatever you want it. Maybe 2 years from now, someone's going to toss it into your IG. If Instagram still exists then.
Okay.
I need to get a trigger so I could play like sounds while you think.
You need like what's the ticking?
That doesn't work.
What's the ticking clock from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah. Down, or whatever.
Oh, man. Like hashtags are supposed to be short, right?
It can be whatever you want. We've had some long ones.
Okay. There's a silly thing that I'm rocking right now on my IG. I hate that sentence. I just came out of my mouth. But let's go with your favorite Ernie's favorite Ernie.
Your favorite Ernie's favorite Ernie. I like that. That's perfect. Dude, I appreciate you doing this. Good luck at the premiere. I can't imagine that. I hope we stay an extra day. We'll try to slide.
Try to come out.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Congrats. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Bang. Yo, if you made it to this part of the episode, thanks so much for listening to Black or No Cream. I love that you guys are tuning in still. More episodes to come. Join the community if you haven't yet. It's completely free. bwnc.com/join. We would love to have you. Please join. Thanks to Adobe for doing these bonus episodes. Go check out the other ones.